Hi, this is Shane Lawrence, and we're here with Paul Kinasevych from Wet Nurse. This is Industrial+Beers, Episode 2, Coffee Edition. So, let's get started here. What was your first entry point into industrial music? And if you want, name your first album that you got into.
My first entry point would have been through my uncle, who introduced me to the entire idea of industrial music.
Okay.
I was 12 at the time, and Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails were, sort of in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And I recall my uncle stating to me that this kind of music was played in a genre called industrial.
Yeah.
And I was like, industrial? What's that all about?
Yeah.
So he burnt me a CD with a whole bunch of artists on it, lent me like some Skinny Puppy and KMFDM CDs, and also Napster was around at the time, so that just allowed me to take it and run with it. And ever since then, I guess industrial has been the music that I've dabbled in the most. And first album, I guess you're asking too.
Yeah.
As perhaps generic as it is to say, it would have been the Downward Spiral. That album spoke to my teen angst so much, and just the time it came out and everything about it was, very instrumental for me.
I think mine was Pretty Hate Machine, so...
Yeah, I heard Pretty Hate Machine first, actually.
Yeah.
But then I heard the Downward Spiral, and I was like, just blown away by the entire concept of it, the fact he recorded it in the house of the Tate murders, and all this. Yeah. It had such a mystique to it.
Yeah.
And I think I must have, because I kept losing CDs or destroying cases because I carried around that CD so much. I must have bought it like 5 or 6 times in total. But that would have been it, as plain an answer as it is.
Yeah, okay. That leads me to my next question. How did you get into writing, recording industrial, death industrial, noise music type stuff?
I get into it.
Yeah.
Well, I had played in a number of punk and metal bands, generally playing guitar, and there were all sorts of creative conflicts, scheduling conflicts, the typical things you run into in a band.
Yeah.
And I just found I needed very much my own outlet. And I also found I was able to do this because I owned a Digitech Jam Man, wherein I was able to record myself and play back and overdub and all of that. And so the early Wet Nurse recordings were essentially nothing but me screwing around with this Digitech Jam Man.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, why I began making solo music. But as for industrial, death industrial, that kind of thing, I just thought that this would be the proper medium for expressing the kinds of ideas I wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
And I had seen it done so well, and again, going back to the Downward Spiral, this, the absolute despondency, all these terrible, awful feelings being almost exercised in a way. And so that's, I guess, why I chose to use death industrial as the genre I participated in.
Okay, all right. So, what were your first instruments and software that you have used, if you remember?
Software first. The first software...
Related to industrial.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would have been Audacity.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And as far as hardware goes, as I mentioned, there would have been the Digitech Jam Man.
Yep.
And I had a bunch of really crappy pedals. One of my favorite crappy pedals was this Dan Electro octave distortion.
Yeah.
And this octave distortion, I found running my vocals through it created such a menacing effect that became a sort of go-to for me. And all that stuff I used early on, I don't think enters the picture much anymore, but definitely, from the get-go, that's essentially what I used, a series of junk pedals, crappy little amp, the Jam Man, as I mentioned, and all recording into Audacity. That was how it began.
Cool. What do you think of the philosophy that it's not the gear you have, but how you use it? That's a typical philosophy in industrial, in some of the communities.
I can attest to this fact in that, the more gear you have, in a way it allows you a certain idea of freedom, but in a way it is as well restricting, because here you are,
too many
infinite
choices,
options, and it's like, dear God, can we not just go back to basics? And I found, even with the restraints, having to set myself these limits that I was able to work within early on, I felt a great degree of creative freedom within those limits. And I have found that for me at least, accumulating more gear has not in any way made me more free. I think I absolutely agree with that notion that it is not the gear you have, but rather how you use it.
I know we're not in your studio, and you did say that some of your stuff is in storage right now, but I'm curious, what is your current recording setup, and what software and hardware are you using?
My current recording setup revolves largely around Korg MS-20.
Oh, okay.
That's where most of the work happens. And then I use an Arturia microboot as well. Sometimes. What I use tends to, on my vocals at least, I almost always use a certain ring modulator. Made by the Ringworm, it's called. Big Huge, I believe, is the company that makes it. Way Huge, pardon me. And those, I guess, are the staples. Now, I mess with these in all sorts of ways, but the staples essentially are the MS-20, the Ring Mod, and I guess to some extent the microboot.
And software? Are you using any software?
Software? Yeah, I actually use GarageBand. I use it for very little more than simply, how
your noise and shit.
Precisely how I would use Audacity previously. I just want a simple interface.
Well, it's free.
It's free. Exactly, it came with the fucking
phone
MacBook.
as well.
There you go. It's just no frills, no gimmicks.
Just get
plain
it done.
basics. Precisely. I don't do much in terms of post-production anyhow, so it's simple for me to just find the sound I want, be like, there we go, that's the sound, now I'm going to record this and not fuck with it.
All right, so if you don't mind me asking, why you went straight edge? What prompted that?
I did. What prompted it?
If you feel like sharing that.
What prompted it? That's an interesting question, and it's one I ask myself as well quite often, and I'm not sure if even I know the answer. But I will say that one thing which, I guess, facilitated it was doing a research project into straight edge and cultural interventions, that sort of thing. And, for a while I had toyed with the idea, and straight edge was something that always existed for me in the peripheries of punk music, with which I grew up, as well as industrial, of course. It's all kinds of goes together. So, and so straight edge was always kind of there, and always interested me very much in terms of as a lifestyle choice, as a political stance, and all these things. And then I don't know. I guess simply put, my partying days are over. I'm getting old. maybe that's the real answer. Is that I've simply become an old, boring man. That's a way of me making peace with that.
How has that affected your music making?
Has it affected my music making? Well, it hasn't informed the content of Wet Nurse at all. I will never, consider Wet Nurse to be a political project or anything, in the same sense that I don't make songs about straight edge for Wet Nurse. It's the same way I don't make political songs for Wet Nurse. But has it in some way affected the writing process?
Like, before you decided to go straight edge, did you drink or use drugs when you were trying to create music? Or?
No, not when I was trying to create. In fact, I found I always needed very much a clear head in order to express, what was going on inside of me. So But it was never a hindrance, nonetheless.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think drinking or doing drugs or anything never did that really come in the way of writing. It was more in the sense that I had to that there would be times to write, and those would be sober times.
Okay.
And now, I guess, in a sense, I have more time to write, and that
Yeah.
all times are sober times for me.
Yeah. I'm not straight edge, but there's been a couple of times where I've been drunk and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna try writing, and after like a couple days after I come back to it, I'm like, oh, these lyrics are garbage. The music is all right, but I'm just like, I can't.
Seems great at the time.
Yeah, it seems
really.
great at the time, but not anymore. Yeah. Okay. How do you think that straight edge comes into play in the industrial scene? Like, there are a lot of bands that use drugs? Do you think, or drink to help with inspiration, or even calm the nerves before a live show? I mean, there's a term, skinny puppy, created, known as brap or brapping.
Right.
The idea that you would get drunk or fucked up on
Yeah.
some kind of drugs or stimulant, then write music. Do you think there is a prevalent culture that exists that follows that line of thinking, where drugs are a necessity for music making? Yeah, in the scene. We're talking specifically in the scene. So.
A prevalent mode of thinking. I don't know about the prevalence of it.
Yeah.
Now, I think Skinny Puppy in particular had a very unique approach. And, in many ways, they were kind of like psychonauts and all these things. And, of course, that, was very much a part of what Skinny Puppy was trying to do. Today, in the scene, I don't know. I don't really come across industrial music that has this sort of stone basement jam mentality to it. A lot of it is very calculated, and a lot of it I feel, of course, I don't know how much industrial music is informed by drugs or alcohol. I feel like, if anything, industrial music is largely informed by political issues, seem to be a main thing, or very kind of, personal issues, which may or may not include addiction, but that's a different downward spiral type thing we could go down.
Velvet acid craze.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, there are then,
there's some and some not. At least that's what I think. But.
I don't know. If doing drugs actually helps you write, then I think you should also try and write without drugs. and find what works for you, essentially. But if drugs are ever a problem for you, or hinder your writing, then of course maybe you should entertain different ideas. But everyone's creative process is very different, so I don't want to go about saying one person's creative process is potentially better than another's. I mean,
exactly.
As long as you can create what you need to create
And do it in a safe way. I would assume.
Precisely.
So,
hopefully, ideally.
Hopefully, I have another question for you, kind of on the same topic. What do you think of people who perpetually try to keep themselves in a state of despair or anxiety just to generally keep hurting themselves so that they continue to have music inspiration? They keep regurgitating or dredging up demons that should have been dealt with the first time they expressed them, almost romanticizing the pain. What do you think of that? I know people that, at least I used to know people that would do that, where they're like, they constantly put themselves into shitty situations because...
I suffer for my art.
And it's... What do you think of that?
I mean, I can only speak for myself here. But I will say that this only poses a problem, I would say, when performing live. Because when I perform live, I have to revisit territory I've already visited. I have to invoke demons I've already exorcised. And this is unpleasant for me. It's part of the reason I have mixed feelings about playing shows, is because I have to, go back and essentially re-experience the kind of trauma of, whatever was informing the music. And I feel like, but in the studio, that's never essentially an issue. I never sit down and I go like, ooh, yes, what, ancient problems am I going to create as a problem again in the present? It's more like there's some immediate problem that I just need to, express, and it's just like, my God, if I don't have anything to say, I'm not going to say anything. But when I'm playing live, you have to say something regardless, even if you have nothing new to say. And so I find myself returning to the past. I prefer not to. But also I think very much that, there are certain, we all have, sort of unconscious, unaddressed traumas.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, maybe the best place to deal with these is in psychotherapy or something, but I think the creative process is very much a therapeutic one in a way. And if you are able to go into the studio and almost get closer to resolving some kind of unaddressed trauma, or finally finding a way to communicate it in a way you never had before, that the words weren't sufficient, or your painting and that wasn't sufficient, or but something, in the studio something clicks and my God, you're actually able to say what you want to say, communicate what you want to communicate. I think that's very important as well. So I think it all depends on your creative process again. But I will say that performing live is sometimes problematic for me in that sense. I have to kind of walk a fine line.
I will say for myself, my very first album, very fucking negative. I will not play it live ever.
Do you go back and listen to it every now and then?
Yeah, I do. It's just like some of the lyrical content, I'm just like, oh fuck, like, it's a good thing I don't perform this live, because I really don't want to get into that headspace again, because I was not in a very good headspace. Very angry, depressed, frustrated, just that kind of shit. And I just like, I don't want to revisit that, because it's, well, personally I think I've evolved from that, and I just don't want to, just drudge up those things, because it's just like, fuck, I've dealt with this, I don't want to deal with it anymore. At least that's for me.
My performances in the last 2 years, and this was a sort of change of pace for me, was that I would perform exclusively new material, nothing even over a year old. You know, prior to that, I used to feel like I ought to like somehow showcase everything I've done. Like, okay, a bit of the old, bit of the new, as though when fucking Metallica and people want to hear goddamn the whole career. But of course, that's not the case, and I would much more prefer. I'm much happier myself just performing the latest material, which I personally feel, of course, is the best too. So
I hope it is.
Me too.
So. You did mention to me at one of the shows we were having a conversation that you had started a label at some point?
I did, yes.
What prompted that?
This would have been like 2012, I believe. What prompted that? Essentially, I wanted to release my own music, but also I didn't want to go out and try and score a record deal, knowing damn well that no one would ever sign me, type thing. Like, oh God, I can actually take matters into my own hands. And I felt very much, I've always appreciated the sort of punk DIY ethos. So I got hold of a whole bunch of shells and, found myself dubbing tapes in my basement, printing out the artwork on my home printer, cutting it up. And this became, in a way, unruly. It grew out of my control, because after this first release, which was a split between me and Gash Cadden, Wet Nurse and Gash Cadden, my friend Brett, who also helped run the label with me. After this, we began signing more and more noise artists from across the world, pumping out more tapes, and I feel for myself at least, it got a little out of hand. Like I never wanted things to get this big.
So, I see,
so when I moved to Calgary, I resigned the label to my friend Brett, who has since kind of molded it into something new.
I see,
So the label persists in its own way. It has a sort of new life of its own through Brett.
Interesting.
And Male Activity was the name of the label.
That was going to be my next question. Why did you decide that wasn't the path for you? So, just because it just got too big and that's not what you wanted.
Essentially.
Commitments and shit, time commitment and...
Are there any other reasons? I also felt more my calling was to focus on my own creative endeavors and less so, as perhaps selfish as it sounds, to focus on releasing other people's creative things. As much as I like to support the scene, as it were, this was not of much concern to me after a period of time.
I technically have my own label, but it's not like legit or anything. It's just a way of promoting myself and looking like a M signed.
I feel like a lot of artists do that, and essentially that's how this began for myself too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's go back, of course, to Trent Reznor and
Yeah.
Nothing Records,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, of
exactly.
course, it became a
Yeah.
subsidiary, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you have your own little thing with which you can do things.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of allows you, at least, to be able to kind of reach beyond yourself if need be. You know.
Do you think labels are the way to go for artists, or do you think that bands and artists are better off without?
I mean, the landscape is changing so much, right? I mean, nowadays we have digital labels, right?
Yeah.
And what is the benefit of these digital labels? I guess I'm gonna pretend that CDs no longer exist. You
Sure.
know, Best Buy has stopped selling
Yeah,
CDs,
sure.
and we're kind of moving into
Digital territory and streaming and stuff like that.
So the function of digital labels then, you know, is essentially similar to the function of old labels, but its primary function is to basically give exposure.
Yeah.
So I think labels are useful insofar as you want exposure.
Yeah.
If you don't want exposure, then there's really no need for a label.
Yeah.
You can self-release everything as it were already, and if you're content with that, then you can just kind of let things be.
Yeah.
If you want additional exposure, perhaps, you know,
Look at labels.
labels. But I don't know how long labels will really exist anymore.
Yeah.
Because if we keep heading in this direction of, you know, everyone kind of being fractured, everyone being able to do everything on their own.
Yeah.
You know, when we reach that point of everyone being completely
There's no point for a
liberated by the
label.
technologies,
Yeah.
there would be no point.
Yeah.
So I think right now labels are useful insofar as they provide exposure, but I think 20, 30 years down the line we might see something very different.
Okay.
We might see really no use for it.
Sorry, I think we've already gone through this question here. What vocal processing are you using for your live sets?
Oh yeah. Well, I did mention the ring modulator,
Yeah.
but alongside that, I use a Bose DS1.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It's
okay.
just- it's
Distortion.
great. It adds a sort of amplification as well, which I
Yeah, sure.
appreciate.
Sure.
I use a Digitech, and I want to call it a distortion factory, I think is the name of this pedal.
Oh,
It has
okay.
8 different voices of distortion.
Okay.
And you can adjust the mids, the highs, and the lows. It's an excellent pedal.
Okay.
So that's one of the other units I use. I also, so there's those 2 distortion pedals. There's the ring mod. I use a really crappy reverb pedal as well. Also made by Dan Electro.
Yeah.
It's a piece of shit, but it does the job. And then there's, I actually use the old Digitech Jam Man for providing delay. It's got like excellent tap delay.
You don't use a laptop for your live show?
No, I've only used a laptop once.
Okay.
And that was a one-off type show. I was using shortwave radio for source material.
Okay.
So that's where the laptop came in, basically as a shortwave radio receiver.
Okay.
No, I've never used a laptop in my
Okay.
live performance.
So I'm just curious, when you're playing your songs, you're manipulating sound in like a pattern form so that you can sing along and...
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you using any like a digital recording device at all?
In
or-
the sense that my Digitech Jam Man as well, and I hate that I've referenced this thing so
Yeah,
many
no
times.
worries, man.
It also, you can load onto it however many voices, loops,
Yeah.
what have you that you like,
Yeah.
and then play them back.
Oh,
so I've
I
essentially
see, okay.
memorized, you know,
I
where
see, okay.
certain things are.
Okay.
It counts in measures too, so after a certain number of
interesting.
measures, I'll see a little blink and I know it's time to switch to another sequence. Yeah.
This is a Digitech...
Jam Man.
Really?
Yes, this is where it all began. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's the Digitech Jam Man with delay. So I don't know. I think I got this for about $700 back in the day. Yeah.
And
so
it's not a drum machine or anything? It's a pedal?
it's not a drum machine. It is essentially a pedal in that if one were so inclined, they could step on it.
Oh, okay.
But it's got
Like loop functions and stuff?
it's got loop functions. It's got a delay function, which
Okay.
is another bonus of it. And yeah, you can overdub things, I think, 3-4 times. Too,
Oh,
if you
okay,
want
all right.
to. Yeah.
Is there any gear coming out that you want or are excited about?
I saw that Arturia has a new I guess they're calling it a mini brute, but instead of the keys, they've gotten rid of the keys and
Oh,
they've put in a
the
sequencer.
2S or something?
Yeah, the 2S or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got rid of the keys, put in a sequencer, added
Yeah.
a little like a patch bay
Yeah.
type thing,
Yeah.
semi-modular or whatever. I mean, that looks interesting. I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
getting my hands on that, but I think you may have inferred from my previous comment that excess gear is
Yeah.
in itself a
Yeah.
problem quite
Yeah.
often. So I do try and keep things minimal. If
Yeah.
I do end up getting one of those, I will have to somehow
Yeah.
downsize elsewhere.
Okay. So, what is exciting to you right now in the goth industrial scene? Any music that perks your interest, or even upcoming live shows? Ministry, Chelsea Wolf.
Here's the thing about Ministry. They kind of suck now. I mean, let's be
Yeah,
frank.
fuck.
Like, Ministry are so far past their prime that,
Yeah.
like, oh God, I almost feel embarrassed
Yeah.
going to see Ministry at this point in time.
And unfortunately, Al Jorgensen lip syncs.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
Wow.
I guess apparently at one of his shows he dropped the mic and the vocals are still going. So it's like, I just found, the last time he rolled through here, I just found that out, and I was like, oh fuck, that sucks. And I went to the Ministry show, I'm just like, oh, I wish you were actually singing. So.
I mean, I almost want to go just for Chelsea Wolf
Yeah.
for the most
Yeah,
part.
me
Like,
too.
I don't know how much old stuff Ministry is going to play. Obviously,
Yeah.
they've taken this, almost new metal direction. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, they've really obviously changed throughout the years, and I think Al, like, go straight edge, kids. Like, Al did way too many
Yeah.
fucking drugs or something
Yeah.
because he's gone.
Yeah.
So Chelsea Wolf, however, I've seen multiple times, and she's fantastic.
okay.
I would love to see her again.
Yeah.
But I found this problem with a lot of shows coming up. It's like, I want to see the opener more
Yeah.
than the headliner.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I want to pay $60 to do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But in the scene in general,
Yeah. Not necessarily local, or even local if you want to mention anything local.
well, the best album I've heard so far this year is this album by Stromstad
Okay.
called New Human Devotion.
Okay.
I believe it's called.
Okay.
And it was released on Malignant Records. And
Okay.
there's a Finnish power electronics project called Stromac,
Yeah.
which they put out an album called Divine Legions Beyond the Psyche, which is one of my absolute favorite power electronics albums. And so this album, this Stromstad album, is a collaborative release.
Oh, okay.
And it's it's almost catchier in a
okay.
way. I don't know. It's hard to describe, power electronics as being catchy, but here we have, it's a really good album. So,
Okay.
God, I don't know.
I know you come from a
I
different
heard this
angle
year.
with that kind of stuff, so like I'm not asking like, oh, are you excited about Comic Christ? Are you excited about Noxmare? Or, that kind of stuff. I'm kind of more in your side of the.
Another great album I heard this year, which also just came out, was Genocidal Majesty
Okay.
by the project Gnaw Their Tongues.
Okay.
Now, Gnaw Their Tongues has been going on for a long time now, and I've been following Gnaw Their Tongues for, at least a decade. And I think he's very prolific. It's basically this one guy, Maurice DeJean,
Yeah.
and he's very prolific, and he combines all sorts of elements of industrial music with black metal.
Oh, interesting.
And he does this in very unconventional ways.
Yeah.
And what you're left with, the listener, is this terrifying, almost like horror movie soundtrack.
Oh,
Really,
interesting.
it's very cinematic.
Yeah.
It teleports you to this, horrifying, like, okay, a serial killer has kidnapped you, and now you're in their mind as well.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely horrific stuff. But anyways, this new Gnaw Their Tongues album, Genocidal Majesty, I think is one of his finest.
Is there anything locally that you're excited about?
Locally.
Yeah.
I don't know, Slava and Jordan had that thing going on.
Purity
Purity Control.
yeah.
And I was very impressed by this. I wasn't, I didn't want to have my expectations too high or too low or anything. So like, let's just say I pretty much had no expectations. I went to go see them. I was very impressed because it sounded a lot like Nitzareb or something, just like classic old school EDM thumping. It was really good. And then Jordan's vocals have this very like kind of demented, menacing
type.
Yeah, almost like Skinny Puppy meets Nitzareb. And I just thought they pulled this off in a really just clever way. It might not work on paper, or it might just come out as generic and boring or something, but I was actually really impressed when I went to see them. I don't know what they're doing.
I know they're trying to do something, but I think they're going to try to do something in spring, but I'm not sure about that. So.
Well, I'll follow them.
Okay. Any last words?
Last words. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Nice chatting with you.
Yeah, no kidding.
I got nothing.
Okay. What are your various sites and social media channels? I'll also link them in the YouTube as well. So.
I have a Bandcamp page.
Okay. Do you remember the address?
It's one word, wetnurse.bandcamp.com.
Okay.
I don't use. I also have a Facebook page, but I rarely use it.
Okay.
Any actual music I put online will be done so through that Bandcamp page.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, there you have it. Industrial+Beers Coffee Edition, Episode 2 with Wet Nurse Paul. Brap on, fuckers.